might not want a new agent, right? You might want, somebody that is used to selling $30 million home. I think in my opinion, it'll largely depend on the type of team you're trying to run.
Is the value of having a brand new agent or a brand new player come in that I can teach and work on their skills and get them to where I want them to be in my organization better than going to hire a vet who's going to come in, cost more money, and complain all the time?
When I look at an agent in general, right, I think about, okay, what can I show them how to do and what can't I show them how to do, right? And the things that you can't teach somebody are like their behavior, their culture, like their attitude, like their habit.
And that's sometimes how I look at real estate a lot is agents are going to expire when it comes to your team. That's just, they're either going to leave real estate because they don't want to do it anymore. Whatever the case is, there will always be turnover. I expect 100% of our agents to leave our team. I expect it. So the only way that I can fight against that is to treat it like a business and know that I have to have the next set of draft class coming in to teach and train and grow.
Which I think is why we're the number one team in the state of Arizona, right? Because we're really just looking for culture fit. Like our main thing is just how many people can we help?
Welcome to the Refuge podcast, everyone. This is Danny Gould along with Keith Anderson and Austin Zaback of the brand new, well, not brand new, of the it's like a rebranding, right, guys? We were KPZ and now we are Space. Oh, dude, it's like we practiced that. It's like we practiced it, but we did. And that was first take. Love it, dude. Love it. Cool. Space, number one team in Arizona. Love it. So today we're going to be talking about recruiting, and obviously anyone who's listening to this podcast, whether you are a small, medium, or large team, recruiting should always be top of mind because bringing great talent into your organization is always going to be a main driver of production, of top line, and really, especially with the changes right now in the market, which we're going to get into with the commission changes and everything. I think that now more than ever, finding great quality talent is probably on everyone's mind, whether you are a broker, a team leader, big, small. So why don't we just get into the nuts and bolts of it all, guys? Maybe start with Keith and Austin, just kind of diving into what you're doing right now in the recruiting space that's working for Space.
Yeah, no, I think one of our biggest advocates always for a team is going to be newer agents, right? Like they're the ones that are probably the easiest to start those conversations with, right? Because newer agents are always looking for training and support, and they don't really know what they don't know. And so that makes it vastly easier to have those open conversations right now, which has always been strong. Now, granted, there has been a little bit less agents coming into the industry, and I think that that's a big piece of the noise, right? Going on, all the craziness. People might be pausing on their desire to want to start a career in an industry that's kind of going through a little bit of change and differences. So we're still heavily focused on newer agents. We also can train a lot of the good habits right out the gates with brand new agents. Like we don't have to maybe break bad habits along the way. So that's been good. The other, I'd probably say 25% of our other types of recruiting is going to be more experienced agents in their first couple years of the business, right? Where they're still struggling on trying to build a database, a list of past clients and build truly a book of business. And so they turn to teams that offer high level lead support and or just general leads that we can give them and connect them with so that they can have some stability to their business. So that's been our big two focus buckets for new and experienced agents.
Okay. And by the way, so on the newer agents, before we get like any further on down the road, it seems to me like there's really two camps. There's two groups of thought, right? There's the team leads that love new agents. In fact, like there's some teams that only recruit new agents. They don't even want to focus on experienced agents. And then there are the teams that are like, yeah, we're not going to touch a new agent with a 10-foot pole. You need to have this much experience, everything. So what are some of the reasons that you think behind the different schools of thought? Because I don't know that there's a right or wrong answer. I think it's just, it depends on who you are and what your organization brings to the table. Right.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Danny, right? It depends on what are you trying to do, right? What are you trying to accomplish? Are you Josh Altman Are you riding their hand? Are you a luxury boutique? Like, yeah, you're probably not going to hire a new agent, right? If you're selling $50 million homes in Beverly Hills, then, you might not want a new agent, right? You might want, somebody that is used to selling $30 million homes. So I think it's in my opinion, it'll largely depend on the type of team you're trying to run, right? Which is essentially what you hit on, Danny. And then really depending on that will depend on like what school of thought, to your point, that you would actually end up kind of owning. And so the way that me and Keith see it is like, we'll take them all, right? Like we'll take them all, which I think is why we're the number one team, in the state of Arizona, right? Because we're really just looking for culture fit. We're not necessarily like, we can pretty much train everything. When I look at an agent in general, right, I think about, okay, what can I show them how to do and what can't I show them how to do, right? And the things that you can't teach somebody are like their behavior, their culture, like their attitude, like their habits, like the things that, like, it's like, what do they do on the weekend, right? Like, are they at the nightclub partying all night long? Like, are they at the strip club or are they at church, right? Like, and I think when I look, and that's just like the truth of the matter, right? Like when I looked at a human being to hire them, even for a staff position, an executive position, or an agent or whoever it might be, I'm like, typically one of the very first questions that I ask in an interview is like, tell me about yourself, right? Like, and then they'll start, and then I'm like, no, like you as a human, like talk to me about yourself, like not your accolades or any of that, but like, who are you as a human being? What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies, right? Because if they're a good culture fit and they're a hard worker, you can teach them everything else, right? Like holding an open house is not, we're not flying to the moon, right? We're selling real estate at the end of the day.
Easy, because it's space, right. We're going to the moon. Okay.
Yeah, we are going to the moon.
Just a heads up.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But yeah, I really do believe that, if you're somebody like us and you're just trying to sell a lot of real estate, we're in a volume game. Right. So maybe a lot of people will be able to relate to that. Maybe they won't. We'll do luxury, right? Like I've done a lot of luxury. We have agents on our team that have done luxury, right? But that isn't our main stick, if you will, right? Like our main thing is just, hey, how many people can we help, right? How many people can we help buy or sell a house, right? Like plain and simple. And so our average price point is probably, anywhere between 450 to 550 grand at any given time. Yeah. Now obviously we're in Arizona primarily right now. We're going to be nationwide in the near future. But yeah, hopefully that kind of, Keith, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, it's selling real estate's not tough. It's not. And so the difference is, running a real estate team is actually vastly more tough than selling real estate, period. Like just hands down. And I think people realize that when they start a real estate team because they were good at selling real estate and they realized the big difference, right? And so with recruiting, are we doing, there's also a difference between doing the job and teaching the job. And the reason we recruit so many newer agents or agents at volume is our team is capable of training all sorts of different personality types and agent types and desire types for their business. And so when you build out a recruiting pathway, you have to figure out like, what am I really good at teaching someone how to do? Because that's going to be where you want to recruit, because that's your value proposition. For a team, you need a good value proposition. For us, the reason we teach a lot of newer agents is because we have more tools, systems, and training built around someone brand new starting their career, because they don't have to pay anything for any of the stuff that we offer, where a lot of other teams might not have the organizational stature that they need and some of the systems and processes that they need to scale out a brand new agent. So they're looking for more experienced agents because they just don't have the bandwidth to walk through a lot of those first early steps. They're expecting an agent to come in, be able to afford their own signage, their own open house signs, maybe their own business card, like all of that stuff. Whereas for us with newer agents, we're good with covering all of that. We're investing in a long-term game to help them grow their business. And so that's where I think Austin's speaking 100% right, is also it's a lot easier to teach an agent to live in the $450,000 to $600,000 price point range and learn those skills than it is to take someone brand new and say, hey, we're going to start you between $2 and $3 million price points. We need you to start to learn how to sell these to a high level owner. And even then, most of the time, those are some of the toughest clients we're going to face are those high price point ones, not because of the actual difficulty of the file, but the difficulty of the personality that we're selling, right? Like it's the conversational, requirements, needing to speak to someone that is expecting way more service than someone in the 400 to 600K range that is buying their first home, right? There's a difference between education and relational service along that pathway. And, sometimes people buying in the luxury marketplace, they're more worried about the experience and the whole process as a whole, not necessarily the educational piece. They've most likely bought and sold houses before. So that's where it requires a different level of agent, and we recruit to what we do.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack there. The one thing that you guys talked about earlier, one of the core value propositions for your organization is like the fact that you're going to, teach them everything. You're going to show them the ropes. You're going to give them the infrastructure for them to succeed. And, in running, so, for anyone who's listening right now, me and Isaac, who's not on this podcast, but we run Large, which is a recruiting platform for teams and brokerages like Space. And what we've found in our time is that there's really one main difference between the teams that love new agents and the teams that will not recruit a new agent. And it really comes down to, do you have an organized and something where you don't have to, the team leader doesn't need to be involved, but still runs without them. So basically an organized, delegated onboarding and coaching and training program.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a organized, high level, delegated coaching and training and onboarding program, you love new agents, because it's basically, you just kind of bring them in and put them through the program, and you almost use the training program. And correct me if I'm wrong, Keith and Austin, but I'm sure that you kind of look at it like this, right? Where as long as they don't give off any red flags during the interview process, you allow the onboarding and training program to be basically the filter, right? Yeah. You're not there to kind of judge or make people make judgments on who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. You allow the training program and the onboarding program kind of like make those decisions or kind of help determine who is worth bringing onto the team.
I mean, it's not even those as much as it is, we just let the agent decide, because at some point we're telling the agent, this is how tough real estate is. Are you willing to do the work that is there? The academy and some of the other training programs that we have in play, it's just a way for us to express ourselves of, this is the process you need to expect in real estate. And then the agent is the one that makes that decision. Not even, most everyone can pass it, but it's not even the pass fail, because I think 95% of our agents pass the program, they get through it. It's once they've passed it and gone through it, do they still want to do real estate?
Yeah.
Because we're honest with them. We're like, listen, like, not what you watch on TV. Point. It's not that stuff. So what ends up happening is they deselect themselves from wanting to do that type of a job. And most of the time when someone's not on our team 6 months from when they began, it's because they don't want to do real estate anymore 6 months after. Not necessarily they don't want to be part of our organization, because we train them so well and so intensively. Like, they just don't want to sell real estate. It was tougher than they imagined. So and I would also add that, sometimes it's the people we expect the least to be the people that are the best. And it happens all the time. It's like, whoa, I did not expect this person to come out the gate swinging like this.
Yep.
And here's 3 contracts in your first 90 days. Like, congrats. Yep. Like, you're on to a good track. And then it's the people we expect the most of. They turn around and you're like, why are you being so lazy? Like, I thought you were this rock star. But again, people can tell you so much, but their actions start to show themselves when they're actually put to the test. And so, we let the system help weed us out through the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I love that. Yeah, I love that. So, question, right? And Austin, I know that you probably experienced this quite a bit when you were growing your team. And Keith, I'm sure that you, as you were growing yours, and then as you guys merged and everything, like, you also experienced this. But at some point, Was there ever like this fear of, well, I don't know if I necessarily just want to work with newbies, because with the newbies, let's just scratch the newbie thing, right? Like, I don't know if I want to like coach and train all these agents because like, they're just going to use me and then leave me.
Yeah.
Right. And I think like this is like this like limiting belief that a lot of people have. So how did you overcome that, those types of like limiting beliefs? I mean, if you ever had them, but I'm assuming that we all kind of experience the same thoughts every once in a while as we're starting to kind of like take this journey as a team leader.
You go ahead, Austin. I got a hot take coming afterwards, so I'll let Austin.
They're gonna leave, right? Like at some point, I don't know the percentage, but I've built a lot of different companies. Building the retail team is one of probably 13 or 14 different companies that I've built over the last 12 years. And during that time, I've probably hired somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,200 to 1,500 people. And to put it into perspective, now between all of my companies combined, we maybe have 230, give or take. So that means that essentially somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000 to 1,200 people didn't work out, right? And I'm okay with that, right? And I'm okay with that. And in my lifetime, probably another 10,000 people aren't going to work out, right? Like, and that's just the reality of it, And I think that you have to just snap out of that mindset. It's such a scarcity mindset of like, I don't want to teach my secrets because somebody else is going to take everything and run. It's like, yeah, they probably will actually, like, and you have to be okay with that, right? And some won't, right? Some won't. Okay. Some won't. Some will be a lifer. What I like to call a lifer. It's not going to be very many. I'm just being honest. And if people came to the Refuge podcast to hear honesty, they're going to hear from me. It's not going to be very many that are lifers. You will get a lifer, right? I think my estimation is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1 out of 20 maybe will be a lifer. It might actually even be worse than that, depending on a couple of different variables. But look, I think that we're entrepreneurs, right? If a team leader is listening right now, you're an entrepreneur. It's just plain and simple. The only question is how big of an entrepreneur do you want to be, right? You can either be a little baby entrepreneur or you can play in the big leagues. And, if you want to play in the big leagues, then you got to look at people like Jeff Bezos. You got to look at people. It's like, you think Jeff Bezos teaches people how to, do all kinds of different things and then they leave because Elon Musk is going to pay him more money? I mean, you look at corporate America, Fortune 500 companies, how often do these high-level executives get poached from a different company offering them to pay $50,000 more than they're currently making? Is literally their pitch. People
it just happened today.
Hey, how much money do you make? I make $250,000 a year. Hey, I'll pay you $300,000 if you come work for me tomorrow. Right? Happens all the time. Right? And these big people, they know that. They don't care. They're not like, oh, let me never hire anybody because I'm worried that they'll leave. Right?
Yeah.
So I think you just have to have an abundance mindset, in my opinion. Yes, people are going to leave. Yes, you're going to have turnover. Yes, they're going to take your stuff and they're going to go do it on their own because they think they can do it better than you or they can do it without you or whatever the case might be. And that's okay. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. And for me, I'm a Christian and, like when somebody leaves my office, I've never burned a bridge in my life. Right? Like there's one thing about me that you can go anywhere in the world. Anybody can go anywhere in the world. I really believe this. And you might have some people in the world that'll say, man, I really don't like that Austin Zaback guy. He's kind of a cat. But nobody can ever say that I did them wrong, treated them wrong, or burnt a bridge with them. It doesn't exist because I've never done it in my career, right? And so, I leave the door open and you'd be surprised how many people actually come back too. That's the last thing I want to finish. I've had a lot of people in our retail team. Me and Keith actually have had this happen several times over the last couple of months, even where people have left. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, we made a big mistake. Like, will you take us back? And we're like, of course we'll take you back, right? We're not we're not here to hold a grudge. Like, of course we'll take you back, right? And so, Keith, I don't know if you have a different opinion on that, but that's kind of my...
I think we're very similar in thought, but I would start out with something you said, Danny, about the worry that people are going to leave as a limiting belief. And I think that that's not a limiting belief. I actually think it's just truth. Like we should just take out, like, it's not, I think it's being a realist, and it's like, it's not, and once you're okay with accepting that And like you can only hear so much rah in your career to be like, no, like be the best and they'll all stay with you. Like, don't worry about like, it's all done.
Yeah. Okay, pal.
Like, but in reality, like, but in all fairness, like that's how so many teams are forced to think, like that it's going to be all great. And that's what keeps them at their level too, is they're so focused on not losing one of their first 20 that they stay at 20 trying to retain, instead of just focusing on the fact that growth matters and the people that believe in your vision and align in your vision will stay with you for as long as they believe in the vision while it fits their life. Because you got to also think about when we scaled, when we started our team and we were at 3 agents, the agents we had when we were at 3 agents, they weren't trying to join a team that had over 100 agents. They tried to join a team that had 3 agents on it. They wanted a small cultural team. When we got to 20, none of those agents were still on our team, because we are now hiring agents that want a team of 20 to 40, a bigger culture fit team with more structure. The small family-like feel agents that we hired to begin with, they're not there anymore. Our vision changed. We're heading down this direction of growth and people adjust. And so I want to compare running a real estate team and or recruiting in a real estate environment to one of the biggest, most famous organizations on the planet, and which I love to always compare things to sports. So I'm going to stick to sports to help explain it. Austin basically is going to tune out for the next 3 minutes because he doesn't even know what sports are. But NFL, okay, the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar organization. And it actually might be a trillion-dollar organization. I don't know. Like, it's ridiculous how much money goes through the NFL. Okay, all of the teams are worth billions of dollars and so forth. If you look at what the NFL provides and what it does and the life cycle of players, it actually matches out to real estate quite a bit. We have this draft that happens every year where these new players come into the league that have talent, some don't have talent. Some of these late draft picks end up being great players, and some of these first round draft picks end up being busts. Like, this is a very common thing, and you're spending time and money and energy trying to recruit them, bring them to your team, draft them, whatever the case is. And when they're brand new, you don't pay them very much, right? Like, they're easier to train. They're more coachable. They're a sponge. They're trying to adapt into culture and team fit. And you actually get the most out of them as players when they're brand new. And that's because they don't have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of contracts on your books. Okay. When they get better, ego also sets in. And they're at a place now that we're like, well, I've become this. I've learned all these things. Like, I'm going to go do this on my own. Like, I'm going to go look for the highest price. Experienced agents are the first ones that are going to come back to you and try and negotiate splits, try and get more out of you, complain about things. They're going to hold out just like the NFL, like where they just don't go to practice for like once because you're not paying them enough or giving them good enough leads or whatever the case is. It's the exact same way. And they'll go join a different team or a different organization and be like, wish I wouldn't have done that. Maybe I joined because of money, but in reality, the culture here was way better, or vice versa. And then at some point they retire. And at some point, a team's got to look at their business of running their roster, and they say, is the value of having a brand new agent or a brand new player come in that I can teach and work on their skills and get them to where I want them to be in my organization better than going to hire a vet who's going to come in, cost more money, and complain all the time? And that's sometimes how I look at real estate a lot. Is you can't have a player come in and stay on your team forever. They're going to retire. Their skills are going to diminish, or the vision that they had doesn't align with your vision at some point or another. It's the same thing for real estate. So if you finally just treat it like agents are going to expire when it comes to your team. That's just, they're either going to leave real estate because they don't want to do it anymore. They're going to build a book of business that they want to just manage themselves and not put the gas on as much. Or maybe they're done making as much money as they were on the team and they want to just kind of coast and just do their career, or whatever the case is. There will always be turnover. I expect 100% of our agents to leave our team. I expect it. So the only way that I can fight against that is to treat it like a business and know that I have to have the next set of draft class coming in to teach and train and grow, so that when the experienced agents on our team eventually do leave or quit the business or change their entire life. Maybe they move to another state. I can't control what their life brings, but I can control what I'm cultivating and building and growing, and scaling. And then I can also paint a very clear, concise vision and trust that my vision is strong enough that whoever I'm talking to will want to be around that vision at that time with our business, right? So like right now, Austin and I, like we're pushing to hit 300 plus agents here in Arizona. Like that's going to be a monumental goal of ours to get there. And there's going to be some agents on our team that don't want to be on a team that big. And that's okay. Because as we hire and we paint that vision, the people that join us see where we're heading and they want to be a part of a team that big and so forth. So I think that's the difference is people that think that they can keep all their agents are kind of in a place of denial for themselves running their business. And they're limiting their own ability to build a great business because they're focused on things that just aren't true anymore.
Yeah. It's a fantasy land for sure. Yeah. It's a fantasy land.
Fantasy.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I think that, well, let me ask you guys this, right? Because I'm kind of going, I have we haven't even scratched the surface, by the way, guys. Like we're like way off, but it's okay. Because I have a question for the two of you. Do you find it easier now to deal with and handle attrition now that you're a little bit further removed from the day-to-day of like coaching and training agents and like just being there? Because I'm or is like, how have you been able to kind of like overcome that? Because I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, I can speak from experience where when I was involved every day with every facet of every agent's success and production, when they left, it was a massive blow to the ego, right? But then as soon as I started delegating some of the coaching and the training and the onboarding and the recruiting, as you start to become further and further removed, it became a little bit easier to like deal with the attrition because like you're just not as involved.
Yeah, but I mean, technically it shouldn't even be attrition. It's positive attrition. If you're hiring more than you're losing, then you never have to worry, period. It's a simple math problem. So it's not even attrition. It's growth. So like we don't have attrition. We have growth. Like I guess, or loss. Like if I look at it and I finish, if we look at that month and we're like, okay, we have 3 more agents than we had, but we hired 10 and lost 7. Then at the end of the day, we still show that we grew by 3 and we're helping more agents than we were the month before reach their dreams and hit their goals. That's plain and simple. So it does become a lot easier because when we're not the individual people selling someone on something or trying to recruit them or build that business, then I won't feel offended if they're not a part of it nonetheless, right? But at the end of the day, I talk about it all the time. I'm not trying to turn no's into yeses. I'm just trying to find yeses. So if at any point in time an agent wants to be a no, then I let them be a no and I keep looking for yeses. Like it's just simple vision for recruiting at that point.
As a side note here, Austin, something that really resonated with me that you said earlier about not burning any bridges. I think that's great leadership. Honestly, the amount of, I'm sure that if you polled, every agent in America who's ever left a company, I could virtually guarantee you that like 99% of them would say that they would never go back to where they were before because they got treated horribly upon exit. And I can personally say that this happened to me at a company where I thought there's no way, like they're going to be happy for me. They're going to be rooting for me, all those things. And let me tell you, dude, it was the exact opposite. And I was warned by a bunch of friends that had left before. They're like, dude, they're your best friends until you leave them. And then it's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out sort of thing. Right. Yeah. So I think that's great leadership. And it's funny that you said that a lot of those people choose to come back. And I remember a conversation with a friend of mine. I'll leave her name out of this because I don't know. I don't know if she wants me to use her name, and it's not very common. So anyways, she left the brokerage that I was at, had a horrible experience. The CEO chewed her out, called her, like she wasn't even like a massive producer. Yeah. Just like a normal producer, but the CEO had never called her before. We're thousands of agents at this company, but he singles her out once she leaves, tells her that she's never going to amount to anything, that she sucks, that she's, horrible agent, go to rate, like all these things, right? Well, a month into this stint at the new brokerage, she calls me and she's like, this place sucks. She's like, I can't believe I came here. Like, there's no way I should have ever left where I was. And she's like, but I'm not going back. She's like, I would go back, but not after that experience. And so they could have very easily gotten her back a month later, but because the CEO of that company pulled that shit, like she's never coming back.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah, I mean, you just have to, I think if you're an entrepreneur, I think it goes back to like having the right expectations. The only reason that you would burn a bridge or treat somebody poorly, I don't treat anybody poorly, bro. Like, I don't care how bad I'm treated. Like, I never return that treatment, if you will, right? Like, it doesn't, like, in any area of my life, by the way. So I think the other thing too to be said is that, like, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? So if in your personal life, you know, your boyfriend, girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-wife, ex-husband, you know, like if you treated them badly, like, then it's not going to look so good in your entrepreneurial journey, right? So I think in my personal life, I also don't treat people poorly. Like, it just doesn't, like, I'm the guy that if you walk up to me and punch me in the face, like, I'm not going to punch you back. Like, I'm just not, like, for me, it isn't worth it, right? It's just not worth it. Like, I'll call my lawyer. But like, if you come in the face, I'm just like, dude, thank you, because I'm gonna sue the crap out of you. But like, I'm not, like, you know what I mean? Like, we're not gonna do that, you know. And so I think it's just important to always treat people nicely. You never know who people know. You never know how the karma will play about. And look, I'm a big believer, if somebody like leaves on the wrong terms, or they break their word, or they screw you over. I mean, dude, I've been lied to, cheated on, stolen from, like everything you can imagine, right? Yep. And like, the way I view it is just like, it's not my place to be the judge and the jury, right? Like, I'm not the judge and the jury. And just because I feel like I was wronged doesn't give me the right to be the judge and the jury, in my opinion, you know? So I think everybody has to form their own opinion, you know? But yeah,
I love that. Moving forward, because we got a lot to tackle here. One question that came up kind of earlier on when I was thinking about this episode was, what were we doing that was working in the recruiting space for the two of you that no longer seems to be working?
Job boards is one for me. Like Indeeds or Wise Hires or like ZipRecruiter, stuff like that. I think the talent pool coming through those portals have just gotten worse and worse and worse. And like, I'd rather have a hungry new agent and take a chance on that than someone that physically is looking on job boards for a real estate job. Whereas in the past, there were legitimately people looking through those boards for a new team or a new brokerage because they were trying to see a good fit, and there was good agents that came through there. Nowadays, it's like people actually looking for a W-2 salaried like real estate job versus an actual salesperson trying to find another sales job. So that did work. Probably COVID was probably the last piece of it working. And since then, it's just dormant. Like, it's just not as good of a source, because it's a lot of people looking for an actual job, not an actual, like, for sales, specific to recruiting a sales agent. That's no W-2, like, full commission.
Okay. Like that seems congruent with some of the things that we've been finding too. What about you, Austin? Anything that you can think of to add to that?
I can't really think of anything that like I was personally doing that is no longer working. I mean, look, here's the reality, right? Which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a little while. Before me and Keith merged, I built a team of like 40 or 50, I think is like the biggest that I ever got. But again, I was running multiple other companies and blah, 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 right? But anyways, we won't go down that rabbit hole. But dude, I recruited every single agent, either through my social media or through somebody that I recruited through my social media. You know, so social media was a big way that I recruited people. Like, literally, when I say, like, if I walk into my office right now, like 10 out of 10 people came from my social media. Like, literally, like, my business partners, like my fiance, like my videographers, my transaction coordinator, like everybody, right? And so, well, I guess not our new TC, but you know, you get the point. And so, And social media still works amazing, right? So I don't know that I can say that there's anything that doesn't work anymore.
You know, it's funny because I'm actually the rare commodity. Austin and I didn't meet through social media. We might be the only partnership that did. We were like legitimately met in actual person. The lights went out on you. Like it's funny because I think about that all the time. I'm like, no, we didn't meet on social. We didn't even follow each other. We weren't friends on social. We met at a reward ceremony, which is cool. And it wasn't even for the real estate industry. So that's just another kind of funny circle. But I just like to know that I'm in the 1%ers of Austin's life. Meet him through social. So just make sure we keep that up there. But yeah.
I just got this like mental image of Moj sliding into Austin's DMs. Like,
that's so funny. I slid into her and she didn't reply for a month.
I left you on red, bro.
Yeah, she thought he was one of those spam bots just sitting out.
She clicked my profile and she thought I was, she saw I was driving a red Lamborghini Urus at the time. It was like my first picture she saw, and she's like, "No, I'm not messaging him."
Straight thought it was a spam bot. I'm telling you, like a fake account from overseas.
Oh man. So yeah, and Austin, you've had a tremendous amount of success on social media, and for anyone that doesn't follow you that's watching this, like you should go give him a follow because he's putting out some really awesome content. And so it doesn't surprise me that you've had a lot of success recruiting, attracting agents to your organization using social. Outside of that right now, like how, what are we doing right now primarily to source recruits? It sounds like Austin's social presence is a big driver. Referrals, right, are a big driver. What else are we doing right now? I mean, I know that you guys are working with us, but like, are anything else that we can kind of like feed to the audience that is also working for you guys?
We work. So like what I would recommend for anybody on here, right, is like in every market, you're going to have probably at least one, if not multiple, depending on how big of a market you're in, but you're probably going to have a couple of schools. Okay. So like real estate schools, right? And I highly recommend that you get to be very close with them and to be good friends with them. So whatever you have to do, if you got to go buy somebody a steak dinner, if you got to go drink a couple of cocktails, like whatever you got to do to get the in with your local school, that'll be really important, right? Because, you got to think like in Arizona, for example, there's this school called ASBREP, okay? Arizona School of Real Estate and Business. And they're like, dude, I think they have like 150 new people a month. Like, I don't even know the numbers.
Yeah.
But it's like quite a few people, quite a few agents that literally get their license every single month. And you know what? None of them have a place to go, right? Not a single agent goes to school. I mean, okay, maybe like 1 out of 100, like their mom or their dad owns a brokerage or whatever. But like very few agents go to real estate school and they already have a brokerage in mind or they already have a team in mind. Like very few, right? And they typically go to this school and they're like, hey, where should I go, right? Like what brokerage should I join, right? And the last thing you want is that school recommending somebody that isn't you, right? And so that would be a big one. We've gotten a lot of people that way. And then Keith, I'll let you maybe talk about a couple of the others.
Yeah, the other really cool one is no one's really thinking about open house prospecting. That's a solid fire one. Reverse open houses is what I usually call it, right? Like you look online, you can see 10, 15 open houses. Guess what? An agent's hustling and holding those open. So I'd rather have hustlers out there doing open houses. And what I've realized, if you build an amazing team, majority of the time, the only reason they don't want to interview or look at that is because they don't know you exist, like plain and simple. And so it's Austin and I's mission this last couple months as we build out a marketing plan. We want every single agent in our state to know that Space is the best real estate team in the marketplace, because it is. And then after that, we want every single agent in the country to know that if there's a Space team in their market, they should probably look at joining it, like period. And so the whole point is, at the beginning, though, like for our market, there's 40,000 real estate agents, right? Like I could go to the 10 open houses on the same street down a highway and I'll probably run into 10 different team or agents that could potentially be a good fit for our team. So that's a really, really cool one that's outside the box that no one thinks about is have your agents, have your own agents on your own team, go out and go to one open house a weekend, and you're basically sending out your foot soldiers to share about all the good news about your team. That's one. The other one that sometimes agents fail on is cross agents on a transaction. So for us, I mean, we're doing 60 to 100 transactions a month, right? So that's 60 to 100 agents every month that we're actively able to talk to and send out a message saying, hey, and one of the easiest ones is, hey, how did you generate this client? Like, how did you build this relationship with your current client? And they're like, oh, family friend, such and such. Oh, that's awesome. So how has business been this year? Like, how are you doing compared, like, and just relate. And then the final question is like, well, hey, have you ever looked at joining a team or creating a security line of your business? Like, we offer leads and training and support. Like, the average agent on our team's doing over 20 transactions a year, like something along those lines, and you're able to open up that conversation and get your foot in the door. So cross agents are huge. Reverse prospecting, you know what agents are out there doing to generate clients. You can go do the same things to generate agents. And then the school lists are probably another one of those the big push. Social media is a given, running ad spend. No one's really doing it. So there are a lot of cool strategies in that play.
Yeah, I love that. The cross agent thing is something that a lot of people don't think about. It's funny because my friend Lisa Chinati out in Massachusetts runs a massive team there. I had the privilege of going out there. I think it was like 2019, and she was calling agents, and I kind of asked her, I was like, Lisa, what are you doing? You know, I thought you were out of production. You know, like, I'm like, why are you still picking up the phone, girl? And she's like, no, I'm calling. She's like, our listing coordinator, or whoever it was, right? Someone in the administrative staff gives her a list of all the cross agents from the previous month. And then her job is to, like, you know, so she has the agent who worked with them.
Yep.
And that agent's contact information, the house address, it's all kind of like there. And she calls them, says like, hey, this is so-and-so. You worked with so-and-so. They said a lot of great things about you, you know? So this is something, Keith, it's funny because yes, it's so simple, but it's also, it's easy to do, easy not to do. And it does require you to work, right? So,
I mean, everything luckily requires us to work, right? But I think that's the thing we keep going down to. Your team is not going to be a fit for every agent in the marketplace. We have to stop trying to turn no's into yeses and just find the yeses. If you call 40 agents on that list, there's probably one or two that are very interested in what your team has to offer. So that's 2 more net agents that you could gain that month that you wouldn't otherwise have had if you just call the list. And if someone says, no, I'm not interested, I was like, great. Well, let me know if you ever change your mind or if you're ever interested, and then hang up and go to the next one. Like, who cares? We're not burning bridges. I'm not being like, screw you. You don't know how much value we have. Like, we're the best. Like, no, it doesn't matter. At that moment in time, that agent does not have a vision that aligns with yours, period. I'm just trying to find yeses.
Danny, we wanted to cut this out, but it looks like somebody would, like your face, you just looked like somebody was trying to break into wherever you're at. And
someone is trying to break in. That's what I'm saying. Like, hold on, give me a second.
Turn out your lights. Like, I'm about to see Danny just get shanked, like from the side. It's a great
I'm watching his eyeballs. You can like hear the door.
Someone was like jiggling, but they're gone now. I'm like, why were you like trying to open my door, dude? Oh man.
It's like, well, we're going to find out that Danny's such a hustler that he doesn't have an office anymore. So he's actually doing it at a public restroom in a restroom stall. And someone's trying to go in there, and he's been sitting on the toilet for an hour using the Starbucks free Wi-Fi inside this bathroom stall, trying to host this podcast. You know,
That's
Bathrooms
funny.
and Bros, the new podcast of the 21st century.
Bathrooms and Bros. No, dude, I was trying to keep it straight. Clearly, I don't have a good poker face.
Dude,
I didn't like. I was surprised and you've seen all that.
All right, cool. Well, let's move on. The open house tactic is an interesting one, Keith. I think it's like very similar to the cross agent one, but
except for they can't hang up on me. That's the problem.
Right.
Way different.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's the same way that an actual open house would be. If you cold call a client or a lead, they can just hang up or not interested and be done. But if they walk into your open house, where do they're gonna have to make a lot more of an effort to just leave. So when I go into an open house, purposely strategizing to say, hey, how do you like your company? Where are you at? And like, if I'm real blunt about it, I'm just like, hey, I'm looking to add a few new agents to our team. You know, we're going to receive over 500 Zillow connections this month alone, and I could really use some support. How are you generating business right now? Like, they're going to talk to me. They're going to, like, especially if they don't have Zillow right now or another lead channel or another lead source. And I don't know if I walk, clearly they're doing an open house. They want more business. They're hungry, right? So if I'm giving them an ability to earn more, they're going to have a conversation, and it's either going to work or it's not. And then I go to the next open house.
You hit something on the head there right now, Keith. And this is something that I think everyone who wants to effectively recruit and retain agents needs to understand, is that you need to get very, very clear on your value proposition. That's something that you guys clearly have like down pat, right? You understand what your value is, and you understand what kind of agents are attracted to that value. And by the way, there is no right or wrong answer. We work with teams around the country, some of whom do all referral, like they don't have leads.
Yeah.
Right. It's all SOI, it's all referral, but they have systems, right? And they have systems that these agents can plug into that are going to allow them to sell way more houses, because they're plugged into an effective SOI referral, a database working system. Right. And so everyone has their own niche and their own avatar of agent that they're trying to attract. That's something that the two of you clearly have. Right. Yep. And before ending the episode, definitely is worth mentioning, like, if you don't know what that is for you yet, you better get super effing clear on that. Yeah. Anyways, moving on, because there is one thing that I wanted to discuss before ending this podcast, which is the new commission laws and the impact that these laws that you foresee having on your recruiting process, right? Or your recruiting needs, right? So why don't we I'm going to open the floor up, because I know it's kind of like a broad question, but it is something that I think is on top of everyone's mind, given that we're like 2 days away now, right? It's August 14th. So I think we're a couple days away from that.
We've already been implementing it. Yeah. I mean, look, I think I'll keep my answer really simple, right? I think that ultimately it's just going to weed out weak people, right? Like weak people, or people that were maybe already on the verge of retiring or whatever. Like, I think, when you look at the industry as a whole, what is there, 1.8 million or 2 million agents throughout the country? Something like that, right? Like depending on where you look, right? I think you're going to see, that number go down a little bit, right? Like, I don't think that number is going to continue going up. Like, that's for sure, right? Like, I think people will leave, people will join. But look, here's the deal, in my opinion, right? So like, this doesn't necessarily answer your recruiting questions. It's more of like a broad answer, I guess, to your broad question. But like, when we think about it, right, nothing's really changing. Like, I know that might sound crazy to a lot of people, but like, the only thing that's changing is you have to freaking pick up the phone, which you should have been doing all along, by the way, to begin with. And you actually have to have a conversation with the cross agent and with your buyer, potentially. And if you're a listing agent, then you have to talk to your seller and actually talk about money, right? You got to talk about money. Like, oh my gosh, it's such a foreign concept for everybody who went through all of elementary school and the public schooling system, and they grew up with it. And then nobody ever talks about money, right? People don't talk about money. They don't talk about sex. Like, and the reality of it is we have to talk about money now. We have to talk about, hey, here's what I'm worth, right? And who's going to pay me? I don't work for free. So either you're going to pay me or you're going to pay me, but one way or the other, I got to get paid. And I think people just have to understand that, it's no longer an industry where you can do everything via text and do everything via whatever. Like, I think you got to pick up the gosh dang cell phone
or do it in person.
Yeah. And I think you can make it happen, so I don't know. I'd love to hear your
hot take. I don't think this will even be around in 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think it's irrelevant, to be honest. I think buyers it's the only people that it's hurting is buyers. It's it's pushing out weak agents, like Austin said, so it doesn't make any difference to us. Like, think about it. We're shooting for 300 agents on our team, and there's 40,000 in the state of Arizona. Like, what's the largest team in the state, and our market share is going to be minuscule, like, for what we actually need. I don't think it's going to affect our recruiting efforts at all. And if in all honesty, I think we'll actually have a lower attrition and actually retain more because we won't be bringing on as weak of agents at times because they would have already weeded themselves out because the process requires more of them. So we'll actually probably have a higher conversion rate of people getting through our academy and getting through training because the agents we're bringing on are going to be, we'll bring on less, but more of them will stick. So at the end of the day, I think it'll just stay kind of where it's at. There was a stretch there that everybody was trying to get their license because real estate was easy. And so our churn rate was higher because agents would come in and it wasn't as easy as they thought from what they saw online and TV and their buddies, right? So we'll have less agents coming through, but more of them will stick. So if before we were bringing on 20 and we had 10 agents stick, now we're going to bring on 14, but 10 agents will stick type situation. So I don't think it's going to change much for us. The other side of it, I physically just don't think we're going to even have a big difference in 6 months. I think within 6 months, it's going to adjust and find itself like at a really good stable spot in the middle somewhere. And it's going to be one more signed document that we didn't have prior to. But I actually like what Austin's take on it of talking about money. We've grown a very weak culture with a bunch of weak people that don't know even if their own person has value. Like they don't even find value in their own selves. Like I've never met someone that can't win an argument or fight for an argument. Like I'll argue with anyone for anything, even if I don't believe in something. Like I'll play devil's advocate and I'll purposely play the other side because I find pleasure in arguing like a point of anything. But people in today's day and age, especially salespeople today, how could you not find value in what your services are? And so that's really what our conversation is. I would have no problem discussing with any client in the marketplace why they should pay me because I'm going to kill it for them, period. And so what's going to end up happening is the agents that do well at that are going to make a ton of money. And the agents that don't do well at that, which weren't closing any houses anyways, are just going to just rid themselves because now they're really not going to close houses. Or if they do close a house, they're not getting paid for it. So, I mean, either way, it's gonna work itself out. So I think it's a really healthy cleanse of our industry.
Yeah, 100%. And just to kind of put a bow on all that too, I think, you know, and it's hard to say how much of this is we can attribute to the commission lawsuit versus the general state of the market. But like, you know, large as a company, we've seen a pretty big drop off in the last 3 months in terms of just new licensees, people getting their license across the country. So in the states that we work in, we're seeing lead flow, and by lead flow we mean like someone that gets their license, right? So we've seen lead flow drop down as low as 20, like from 20% on the year. So like we've seen some states go like literally drop 80% in like 3 months. And so hard to say whether that's seasonality, which that definitely, like we're used to seeing less recruits in the summer. Whether that, or it's the market conditions or the commission stuff, or if it's a combination of everything. But it does drive home the point that I wanted to make, which is we are going to have less at bats on the recruiting side of things. When you factor in that there's going to be overall attrition, like when it just comes to like the number of agents in the marketplace, right? Or in that are working, plus the number of draft picks, as you say, right, Keith, like the number of draft picks are like, those are also going to diminish too. So I think as we see existing agents leave the business and less agents entering the business, obviously that's going to make every recruiting at bat super important. Yeah. And so I agree. Yeah. So brushing up on the skill, and this is something that definitely I think, you know, we can do a completely other episode on, is like, what are the conversations like? What are those skills like that we got to drive home? Like, how do we have those recruiting conversations to kind of like convert at the highest level? But that's for another episode, right, gents?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Love it. Cool, guys. Well, that's it for today's episode, unless you guys have any other points that you want to make.
Dude, I'm fired up. If you need anything, if you listen to this podcast and you got value, reach out to us, right? Reach out to Keats, reach out to me, reach out to Danny, reach out, and we'd love to help. We want to be in your corner, right? We want to create a place, refuge, right? It's kind of the idea there. So we'd love to communicate with anybody anywhere in the country, by the way, and see how we can collaborate.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think we're trying to partner with teams anywhere in the country. So whatever we can do to help, empower you to grow a strong team and grow a great system and process like we have, like that's our goal.
Yep. Awesome. All right, gentlemen.